All too often we cover stories of rejected lovers who cannot accept the end of a relationship. In such cases, we see a perpetrator targeting the ex in a disgusting manifestation of the "if I can't have you, then no one can" trope. But occasionally this spurned individual will not be concerned with any collateral damage of other people being around the intended target. And indeed, sometimes the rage and frustration can be such that they just want to do the maximum damage. But that's not to say that they are completely out of control, despite their anger. As in today's case, our killer uses his knowledge of his ex's father's high-profile career to find out if he is likely to be at home, and as such the greatest threat to his calculated attack. This is the case of the massacre of the Hunt family in Bushey, Hertfordshire, in the summer of 2024. And this is Murder of Crows. Bushey is a large town in Hertfordshire. Located in the wider London area, it is near the more well-known city of Watford. Bushey is mentioned in the Domesday Book of 1086 in the form of Bissay. Although there has been some debate, modern scholarly commentary has concluded that the name originated as a compound of the Old English words bushk, meaning bush or thicket, and haig, meaning enclosure. Thus, it meant enclosure made of bushes when put together. However, chance archaeological findings of Stone Age tools provide evidence that the area was inhabited as far back as the Paleolithic period. The town also has links to the Roman occupation of Britain, with the main road running through it being Roman. Sites of possible Roman villas being unearthed in the area, and a Roman tessellated pavement was discovered near Chiltern Avenue. The 19th and 20th centuries marked the time of the most change in Bushey, especially between 1860 and 1960. The population rose 28-fold within 200 years, from 856 in 1801 to just under 24,000 today. And the expansion was for many reasons. One of the main ones being due to the boom in industry caused by the railway in the early 20th century. A result was that many new jobs were created in and around Watford, and this led to an increase in affordable housing in the area from the 1920s. These days, local events include the Bushey Festival and Quarter Marathon, held each July, and the Horticultural Society's Flower and Produce Show. Being located near several film studios at Elstree and Boreham Wood, Bushey and Bushey Heath frequently feature as backdrops for many films and TV shows. Several historic buildings in Bushey, most notably the old Royal Masonic School for Boys, later the International University in the Avenue. These have been used in films over a long period of time, including Children of Men and Harry Potter. It has also been the set for several television comedy series, including Monty Python's Flying Circus and Little Britain. So, having looked at the good points of Bushey, we now need to look at something bad. In fact, very, 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 very bad. One of the families living in Bushey in July of 2024 were the Hunt family. John and Carol Hunt were in their early 60s, but were still extremely active, with John being a high-profile horse racing commentator for the BBC and for Sky Sports. They lived with two of their three adult daughters, Hannah and Louise, with eldest daughter Amy not living at home. Hannah was 28 years old and was a beautician working at the anti-aging clinic in Radlett. And Louise was 25 and was a dog groomer who worked from home in an outbuilding, with customers entering and leaving the property through a side gate. Until the end of June, Louise had been in a relationship with 26-year-old Kyle Clifford. But the pair had broken up on the 26th of June, with Louise telling Kyle in a message, "I feel like it's been broken, and I can't ignore how I've been feeling, or made to feel, in our relationship over the course of the year." So, just a normal split. So far, so normal for suburban life in the UK in the 2020s. Louise believed that Kyle Clifford had accepted the end of the relationship, and the pair would go their separate ways. Yeah, not so much. Kyle Marcus Clifford was born on the 5th of April 1998. He lived in Enfield and was a former security guard and soldier who briefly served in the Queen's Dragoon Guards. After his breakup from Louise, which she had hoped would bring about a fresh start for both of them, his behaviour between the breakup on the 26th of June and the 9th of July, so just less than 2 weeks, is a chilling insight into the insidious and callous nature of a man not happy with things not going his way. To truly understand the events of the 9th of July, we really need to understand what happened leading to that day in terms of the mind and behaviour of the perpetrator. The downswing in his manner and behaviour started almost immediately after the breakup, which, as we know, happened on the 26th of June. On the 28th of June, Clifford is known to have searched online for crossbows and where they could be purchased before going on to, watch a bit of porn, as you do. Just 2 days after the breakup, it's clear that Clifford was harbouring thoughts of malicious intent. With dark thoughts still whirling in his mind, Clifford accesses Carol Hunt's Facebook page on the 1st of July. Whilst on the same day, Clifford also has a conversation with his brother about buying a crossbow and conducts searches online for air rifles. This is not going in a good direction. I think we can all agree on that, can't we? On July the 3rd, Clifford's planning starts to become tangible, with Clifford buying a Horizon Cornet MXT 405 compound crossbow, a pack of 6 crossbow bolts, and a rope cocking device through Tactical Archery. He also orders a 219-pound CO2 Glock air pistol from the Air Gun Centre in Essex. It was not delivered before the actions of July and was recalled by the company when the company heard about Clifford's later actions. On July the 4th, it seemed that Louise Hunt was starting to waver on her decision to break up with Clifford. But she knows she made the right choice. But in order to stave off any moments of weakness, she writes a note on her phone to remind her why she broke up with the cockwomble. Louise Hunt makes a note on her phone titled "When You're Sad, Look," which set out how Clifford was racist, had commented he did not like transgender people, and had used belittling language. But while Louise was using logic and resolve to look at Clifford's past behaviour, his ongoing behaviour was delving ever deeper into darkness. On the same day that Louise was making her digital note, Clifford bought 2 petrol cans from Halfords and 2 rolls of duct tape from B&Q. He also searches how to uncock a crossbow and fired a crossbow bolt into a tree. Ominous indeed. Oh, and the next day, the 5th of July, he searched for how to source knives, and on the 6th of July, Clifford receives an update on his purchase of a high-level 10-inch butchering steel knife worth £89. Packaging for the knife was found at his home address later, but this knife itself has never been found. All of this brings us to the 9th of July 2024. This is what we know about the events of that day. At 1:07 p.m, Clifford leaves his home armed with a knife and a crossbow. Then at 1:48 p.m, Clifford searches horse racing today on the internet to see if Louise Hunt's father, BBC and Sky commentator John Hunt, was working that day. And he found that in all likelihood he was away that day, so he sets his plan in motion beginning at just after 2:30 p.m. when Clifford knocks on the door of the Hunt family home with a black rucksack allegedly containing a knife, and he tells Carol Hunt he wants to return items of property. His manner is presumably calm and amiable as Carol allows him into the home. But then sometime between 2:40 and 2:45, Carol Hunt is murdered by Clifford in a brutal knife attack, with screams and banging sounds heard coming from the property. Despite the brutal and rageful attack, Clifford maintains a level of focus and concentration as he moves ahead with what seems to be a preconceived plan. Because at 3:10 p.m, Clifford returns to his car to retrieve the crossbow, which was hidden under some sort of white cloth or blanket, ahead of Louise returning home. At 4:13 p.m, a faint scream is heard shortly after Louise Hunt enters the family home, after which Clifford enacts the main aspect of his twisted plan. Because as soon as she returns home, she is restrained with duct tape around her ankles and her wrists. And it was alleged that between her returning home and shortly before 7 p.m, that she is raped by Clifford, who also uses this time to take steps to try and get away with murder. Anytime he was not being allegedly rapey, Clifford's actions shows his obsession with Louise and also a determination not to get caught. At around 5:40 p.m, it is believed that Clifford checked Louise Hunt's mobile phone to see who she had been in contact with and to see what she had been looking at on Instagram. After this, Clifford tells his sister he was shooting his crossbow at a friend's house and that it was not illegal after she asked why he had taken it out with him. Then at 5:52 p.m, Clifford messages John Hunt from Louise Hunt's phone asking, "What time are you home?" Followed at 5:57 p.m. by Clifford searching, "If I unplug my smoke detector, will it go off?" And the belief behind this search is that he had contemplated the use of fire to destroy evidence, also shown by his buying petrol cans a few days earlier. Louise Hunt's terrifying ordeal of restraint and torture finally ends at 6:50 p.m, with her being murdered with a crossbow, shortly before Hannah Hunt arrives at the property. At just after 6:50 p.m, Hannah Hunt realises that Clifford is at the address and shouts, "What is wrong with you?" Quite understandably, I think, with high-pitched squealing and screaming heard coming from the property. But despite this fear and screams and everything else, Hannah still has enough presence of mind that she tries to get word to her partner at this time, with her sending a message to said partner saying, and I will put this on screen so that you can imagine the frantic typing leading to a typo or two. "Call police, Leggy. Immediately to mine. No. Kyle here. Polko. No, he's tying us up." Then at about 6:55 p.m, Hannah Hunt is shot with a crossbow, and Clifford walks away from the property with the crossbow hidden under the white sheet that it was originally under in the car, and also carrying the black rucksack, leaving a scene of utter carnage behind him. At 6:57 p.m, a female was heard in the property screaming, "Oh my God, no!" Thought to be Hannah Hunt, realising her sister and mother have also been attacked. But summoning up much of her remaining strength, Hannah Hunt uses Carol Hunt's phone to dial 999 and identifies Clifford as the attacker to the call handler. First responders race to the scene, where Carol and Louise Hunt are found dead, and unsuccessful resuscitation attempts are made on Hannah Hunt until she is finally also pronounced dead. In the immediate aftermath of this massacre, the police warned the public not to approach the suspect, who may have been in possession of a crossbow. They also appealed to anyone who was near to Ashlyn Close between lunchtime and early evening on that Tuesday to get in touch. One local councillor, Louise Nicholas, said that there was support available for residents affected by what had happened, because things like that just didn't happen in these places.
To a property in Ashlyn Close just before 7 p.m. last night. Officers attended alongside colleagues from the East of England Ambulance Service and, on arrival, found 3 women with serious injuries. Sadly, despite their best efforts, the women, who are believed to be related, died a short time later at the scene. The victims are aged 25, 28 and 61. Our overarching objective today is to protect public safety and to locate Kyle Clifford, who is wanted in connection with the murder of the 3 women in what we believe is a targeted incident.
At about 5 a.m. the next morning, Clifford was spotted in a cemetery in the Lavender Gardens area of Enfield, North London. Quite understandably, police raced to the scene, and this included dedicated firearms officers, given the belief that Clifford may still be armed. Nearby wooded areas were surrounded and searched until at around 4:20 p.m. Firearms officers located Clifford in a wooded area. He had a loaded crossbow before he shot himself in the chest with the weapon.
Almost 24 hours after the manhunt started, this was the moment police found Kyle Clifford, stretchered out of a cemetery in Enfield in North London by police and paramedics. This was the picture they released of Clifford on Wednesday morning in an effort to locate him. The street search started when police found the bodies of 3 women at a house in a quiet suburban town of Bushey in Hertfordshire. The victims of a senseless crossbow attack were a mother and her daughters. 25-year-old Louise, her 28-year-old sister Hannah, and their mother, 61-year-old Carol Hunt. The 3 women are the wife and daughters of Sky Sports racing broadcaster John Hunt. Police and paramedics were called just after 7 on Tuesday evening, and neighbours have been shaken by events.
I got calls from other people saying that something tragic had happened. I only learned this morning that there was actually 3 women who had been brutally killed, which is horrific.
Safia lives opposite the family and watched last night as emergency services descended on the street.
We were all very anxious. We were on edge all night, unable to sleep until the very early hours of the morning because we're just seeing a flood of blue lights, helicopters, sirens everywhere. We were all very scared.
Flowers have been laid at the cordon throughout the day by locals and friends.
Honestly, one of the loveliest girl I ever knew. Always had a smile and very positive and hardworking. So genuinely a really, really sweet person.
Many in the area knew Louise as the proud owner of a dog grooming business, with one telling Sky News she was the sweetest, kindest, most gentle person with the most loving family. Louise would send me pictures of my dog asleep during grooming. That's how much of a wonderful and relaxing person Louise was. It's understood Clifford left the British Army at the end of 2022 after a brief period of service, and up until recently he was working as a private security guard. Clifford is now being treated in hospital as a family tonight is broken after losing 3 of their dearest members. Ashen Haranag, Sky News in Bushey.
Around half an hour later, Clifford is formally arrested after receiving medical assistance. Following the announcement of the tragedy, tributes to the Hunt family poured in from within and indeed beyond the sporting fraternity.
Ladies and gentlemen, on Tuesday evening at a loving family home in Bushey, Hertfordshire, an unimaginable tragedy occurred. We now know it was at the home of John Hunt, known to millions as the voice of BBC Radio horse racing, Sky Sports racing presenter, and one of our very best and most respected racecourse commentators. Those of us who've had the pleasure to work alongside John over the years also know him as the friendliest, jolly, upbeat friend and colleague. With no ego, he is a true gent. But also, he is a devoted family man. And John's loss is quite simply beyond words. Now, at this darkest time for John and his family, we ask you to join us in a minute's silence as we show our respects, but also as we send them our love and support.
This has been a heartbreaking day. John Hunt is our colleague and our friend, not just to the current Five Live Sport team, but to all of those who've worked here with him over the past 20 years. And also to all of you who have enjoyed his superb commentaries. So, on behalf of everybody connected to Five Live Sport, our love and thoughts and support are with John and his family.
In circumstances today, there's going to be a minute's silence 15 minutes before the first at 5:50, and that's remembering John Hunt's family, Carol, Hannah and Louise, who we're all thinking about. And one thing, I spoke to John this morning, he's bearing up well as can be expected, day by day, hour by hour. And all he said to me was, whatever you do on a night, never go to bed in an argument, and make sure you give your loved ones a big cuddle. And that's from John.
Flowers laid at the scene on Ashland Close. Floral tributes have been left at the roadside where a mum and two sisters were brutally killed in a crossbow attack. The devastated neighbours and friends of the family have described them as beautiful souls and the loveliest, gentlest family.
Additionally, a GoFundMe primarily aimed at supporting the surviving Hunt daughter, Amy, was set up and received a deluge of support from well-wishers. Clifford was arrested on the evening of the 11th of July on suspicion of 3 counts of murder, but at that time remained in hospital unable to be questioned because of his injuries. On the 17th of September 2024, he was charged with the murders of the women, appearing remotely at Westminster Magistrates Court.
Accept, Kyle, that based on the evidence, that this is a premeditated murder of 3 people. No comment. Do you accept that you have meticulously planned this murder from the moment that you split up Louise? No comment. From the moment that she sent you that text message at the end of June, you began to plan her murder. Yes? No comment. It's evident quite clearly from your purchase of the crossbow, from your purchase of the additional bolts, from the purchase of the gun and the knife, in the 2 weeks leading up to the murders. Do you agree? Do you agree that it shows that you only had one thing in mind, and that planning began when you purchased these items? You purchased rope and you purchased duct tape in order to restrain Louise and Hannah and Carol, didn't you? 6 days before this happened, you make these significant purchases that really only have one plausible explanation, didn't you? No comment. The only plausible explanation is that they were purchased in order for you to carry out these murders. Do you agree? No comment. You got to the address and you came well prepared. You came prepared with Louise's belongings, didn't you? No comment. Louise's belongings were your ticket into that address. Yes? No comment. You deceived your way into that address at the front door with Carol, pretending that you were having a civil and friendly conversation and returning Louise's property, and you'd even written out a thank you card. Yes?
He was also charged with the false imprisonment of Louise Hunt and with 2 counts of possessing an offensive weapon. On the 19th of December 2024, Clifford appeared remotely at Cambridge Crown Court, where he pleaded not guilty to the 3 counts of murder, as well as the charges of false imprisonment and possession of an offensive weapon. At this time, he was additionally charged with 1 count of rape. On the 22nd of January 2025, he changed his pleas to guilty for all 3 charges of murder, the charges of false imprisonment, and of possessing an offensive weapon. He pled not guilty to the charge of raping Louise Hunt, with his defence arguing that the forensic evidence of sexual contact can be explained by the couple having consensual sex on the 23rd of June 2024. But in response, the prosecution said that this theory was untenable. Now, in an aside, it's worth mentioning that Clifford's brother Bradley is also a convicted murderer, having been sentenced at the Old Bailey in 2018 and still in prison at the time of the murders of the Hunt family. Bradley Clifford flew into a rage when a bottle was smashed on his prized Ford Mustang car, and he launched into a pursuit of moped rider Joshua Francis, aged 19, and his pillion passenger Soban Khan, aged 18. After a 20-minute high-speed chase through the streets of Enfield, Clifford rammed his car into the moped. Francis miraculously survived after being thrown through the air, but Soban Khan was fatally injured. In his rage, Clifford continued the attack on the dying teenager, punching him 9 times as he lay injured and dying on the ground. They sound like an absolutely lovely family, no? Do you not think? Invite them round for tea and scones. In February of 2024, the Home Office reviewed evidence to see if there was a need to legislate to restrict the ownership of crossbows, as they had been used in several attacks. A new government took office in July of 2024, with the Home Office announcing that Home Secretary Yvette Cooper would look at the findings of the earlier review. Prime Minister Keir Starmer described the killings as awful, master of understatement, and pledged that the government would look at crossbow legislation in response to the attacks. And that was the tragic and needless attack on a family, just because one of the residents had the audacity to break up with the perpetrator. And having heard the note that Louise Hunt wrote regarding reasons for the breakup, which were presumably just the tip of the iceberg, she had good reason to be done with the cockwomble. Despite the guilty pleas to the majority of the charges, the sentencing has yet to happen. But I will post an update as soon as it goes ahead. Editing Steve here, just jumping on to say that the very day that I recorded this video, it was revealed that Kyle Clifford had been found guilty of the rape that he claimed that he was not guilty of. So that's the next stage in the legal proceedings. The judge, Mr. Justice Benathan, said that Clifford's crimes were dreadful and almost unspeakable. The lead detective, Detective Chief Inspector Nick Gardner, is quoted as saying he simply couldn't deal with what he perceived to be a dent to his pride. He then sought to control the situation in terms of weapons purchases, the cold, calculating way in which he lay in wait in the house for Louise. It's also been noted that Clifford had searched for Andrew Tate's podcast less than 24 hours before the murders, and in this way the violent misogyny promoted by Tate fueled his attacks. And with all of that said, we're still waiting for the sentencing, so as soon as I have any information on that, I will update you. But I wanted to jump on now just to mention the fact that he was found guilty of the rape, in addition to the murders he'd already pled guilty to.
Recently, because I've worn out so many pairs of flats.
Is your intention to make people feel sorry for you writing these letters?
I'm pleased that he's been found guilty. The evidence was strong in terms of this case. It shows the full gravity of his offending and the nature of his character, and I hope that will be reflected in the sentence.
But I think it's safe to say that, like his brother, he won't be leaving prison anytime soon. Editing Steve Part 2. Now, I changed the order of the episodes just because just last week the sentencing for this case was released, and this particular cockwomble got 3 whole life orders. Couldn't have happened to a nicer chap. Anyway, here are some news clips regarding it, and back to your original programming.
26, Kyle Clifford has a long life ahead of him. All of it will be spent in prison with no chance of parole. And here's why.
The evidence I have heard shows you to be a jealous man, soaked in self-pity, a man who holds women in utter contempt. This is no occasion to subject the family and friends of your victims to any delay or suspense. I therefore make clear at once that for each of these 3 murders, the sentence will be one of life imprisonment with a whole life order. That means a sentence from which you will never be released.
Clifford had been dumped by his girlfriend Louise Hunt, a dog groomer. Angry at the rejection, he hatched a plan of revenge. 2 weeks later, his own dashcam recorded him arriving at her home. He had a butchery knife with him and a crossbow, murder weapons he bought on the internet. In an afternoon of bloodshed, he murdered Louise, her sister Hannah, and their mother Carol. In court, John Hunt said he'd lost 3/4 of his family to Clifford, a psychopath who'd deceived them all. In an impact statement he read out, he said, "Just remember one thing, whatever misery lies ahead for you, on your dying day, there will be no release for you. The screams of hell, I can hear them now when they roll the red carpet out for you. Your miserable fate will last for eternity." Mr. Hunt praised the courage of his daughter Hannah, who, even as she lay dying, managed to call police to the house. He believes that Clifford had planned to wait there for his return and kill him too. His surviving daughter Amy said, "You ensured that my family endured their last moments alone and terrified. I always hoped that I'd be there to hold my mum's hand as she passed away. I only wish it had been me instead of them." Clifford, a former soldier, fled the murder scene with the crossbow under a blanket. He was caught and arrested the next day as he tried to kill himself. He refused to go to court to hear his sentence.
Today's sentence sends a message to men who perpetrate serious acts of violence against women. You will be held accountable, and you will face the full force of the law. You can run, but you cannot hide from justice.
The Hunt family and the judge said they hoped everything that had been said about Clifford would eventually be relayed to him in his prison cell. Martin Brunt, Sky News, Cambridge Crown Court.
As close as you can. The officer and the...
Ready? I am Detective Chief Inspector Nick Gardner from the Bedfordshire, Cambridgeshire and Hertfordshire Major Crime Unit. I would firstly like to pay tribute to the Hunt family, John and Amy, and Hannah's partner Alex. They have suffered unimaginable loss as a result of Clifford's actions. They have shown dignity and strength of courage throughout the investigation and trial. And although the sentence will provide little or no consolation, at least we know that Clifford will never be released from prison. Today, Clifford received a whole life sentence, which is fitting for the appalling nature of his crimes. Clifford showed once again that he is a coward. Despite overwhelming forensic evidence, he pleaded not guilty to rape. He refused to attend court for his trial or to hear his punishment. Aged just 26, Clifford has many years ahead of him to consider the consequences of his crime and the senseless devastation he has brought to others. I would like to thank my investigation team for their tireless work and dedication in bringing this case to court. Ultimately, it is their hard work, as well as the evidence secured by officers who attended in the initial response, that has resulted in today's sentence. I would also like to thank the many officers from Hertfordshire Constabulary, the Metropolitan Police Service and the City of London Police who were involved in the initial response to this horrific crime. Clifford was clearly a dangerous man, and these officers acted with immense bravery, knowing that he was likely armed and had killed 3 people just hours earlier. I would like to thank counsel for the prosecution and the Crown Prosecution Service, who we have worked closely together with throughout the duration of this case. 3 innocent women from the same family lost their lives simply because Clifford could not accept rejection or Louise's right to leave their relationship. There was nothing that Louise, Carol or Hannah could have done to predict the violence that ensued or to prevent it from happening. They resisted Clifford's attack with bravery, and Hannah herself raised the alarm, despite having suffered an injury that would later take her life. Today's sentence sends a message to men who perpetrate serious acts of violence against women. You will be held accountable, and you will face the full force of the law. You can run, but you cannot hide from justice. Thank you.
I'm Lisa Kiff from the Crown Prosecution Service. Kyle Clifford is a murderer and rapist who at every turn has attempted to escape the gravity of his actions. From seeking to evade arrest to not attending his trial or the sentencing hearing today, his lack of remorse and accountability for the truly inhumane crimes he has committed has been laid bare. While Clifford pleaded guilty to the murders of Carol, Louise and Hannah Hunt, the Crown Prosecution Service took the decision to proceed with the rape charge. This was to ensure full justice was secured for Louise and to ensure that Clifford could be sentenced for the full extent of his offending. That decision has been vindicated by his conviction for the rape and by the sentence passed today, as Clifford will never be released from prison. On behalf of the Crown Prosecution Service, I want to express my heartfelt sympathies and admiration to the Hunt family. They had the strength and courage to attend court every day and hear firsthand the devastating truth of what happened to Carol, Hannah and Louise, something which, in stark contrast, Clifford was too cowardly to do. We hope today's sentence, which ensures Clifford can never hurt anyone again, can help the Hunt family with their healing process as they navigate the future and continue to honour the lives of Carol, Louise and Hannah. Thank you.
And we are left to reflect on the 3 wonderful lives cut short by yet another selfish man-child. This video is of course dedicated to Carol, to Hannah and to Louise Hunt. I send love and deepest condolences to all that knew and loved them, especially John and Amy Hunt, who have to navigate their very fresh grief as best as they can. Thank you for watching another episode of Murder of Crows. Please like, share, subscribe and do all of the good stuff, because it all gives me very fuzzy feelings in my tum-tum. But with that said, I'm Steve. This here is Samson. You are, aren't you? Yes. And we will see you when we see you. You fussy bastard today, aren't you?
Say that you're ready, but you won't like it, you say